Hello, everyone. Welcome to Court with Krissy. Between the personal protection order, filing for divorce, and the grandpas going at it, this couple has all the drama. But don't be alarmed at the ending. Judge Mogen knows exactly what she's doing. I hope you like it. Court with Krissy is now in session.
We will go on the record in the matter, there we go, 24 FA 53, in re the marriage of Alec Taylor and Melanie Taylor. Appearances are, we do have Alec Taylor appearing by video conferencing, his counsel, James Bach, also appears by video conferencing. We have Melanie Taylor appearing in person with her counsel, Kate Murtaugh. We're set today in this matter for a temporary order hearing. The court has received, I believe, a few submissions of various kinds in this case. I'm somewhat familiar with the parties and the matters with other matters and filings amongst each of the parties. I believe that this was originated by Mr. Taylor, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Mr. Bach?
Yes, Your Honor, that is correct.
All right. So, Mr. Taylor, you have requested that the court have this hearing here today. So I am going to turn the matter over to you.
So, Your Honor, just so that we can clarify a little bit of what the court summarized, this action was initiated pro se by Mr. Taylor, I believe, in after service of the local sheriff effectuated service. I was engaged subsequent to representing Mr. Taylor in a harassment restraining order in a prior matter against his estranged wife. If the court recall, at that hearing, my client stipulated to the entry of a harassment restraining order for her, and the court offered to schedule a temporary order hearing, but the parties denied at that time because there would be some problem exchanging the child. Subsequent to that, I did schedule a temporary order hearing for later in September before the circuit court commissioner. Then the respondent engaged counsel, who on, I believe, the 23rd of August submitted a whole voluminous amount of ex parte matters. I wrote the court on the 26th of August when I received them from the clerk of court processing and asked the court to deny the ex parte requests. The ex parte request was for a temporary order. We had a hearing date, and because of the denied ex parte requests, I contacted the court and got in front of you as fast as possible. So that's how we're here in front of you today, Your Honor. And the only thing on the submissions, there was an affidavit in support for this temporary order hearing where my client is stating, or he's sworn that he's being denied access to his child. The court has the ex parte pleadings. He addressed some of the allegations by the respondent as well as respondent's counsel. My client has filed a preliminary financial disclosure statement, and my client has completed the parenting class because I would also ask the court to note he has previously been in a paternity matter in front of this court where he's been awarded joint legal custody of a non-marital child. That's about all.
For the record, I don't believe he was in front of me. I believe it was any hearing was in front of commissioner in that matter.
I don't think you were on the bench at that time, Your Honor. This would have been the findings of fact issued by, it is stamped.
It was me. I was here. I was here a long time. I've been here almost 8 years, Mr. Bach.
It was in front of the commissioner. I think it was a stipulation, Your Honor. So we might not have been here in front of the court, but that's the prior matter that I was referencing.
Yes, it was a 2018 case. I've been on the bench since 2017. And he was in front of commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, all right. So, Mr. Bach, would you like to call your client?
Sure, I would call Alec Taylor.
Mr. Taylor, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Did you say yes? I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna have to speak louder. I have a court reporter who is on video conferencing, as you can see, and he needs to be able to hear and take down everything that you say. All right, Mr. Bach, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Taylor, could you just tell the court when you and your estranged wife separated, the date that you separated?
I believe it was July 26th.
Okay. And since July 26th, have you been able to visit with and have physical placement of your marital child?
Very briefly.
How many times?
I'd say about 6.
Do you know when those were since the separation?
It was twice a week. I don't have exact dates. It was twice a week for about 10 to 15 minutes at a time.
When you say it was twice a week, how did you arrange to see your child twice a week, 10 to 15 minutes at a time? How did you arrange that?
I would text her father, Timothy Jacobson, until the altercation happened between my father and Timothy Jacobson.
So just to remind the court, why were you texting the maternal grandfather to visit your child?
As it was stated in the injunction that I was to contact him to get visitation with my daughter.
And when you say stated in, excuse me, when you say stated in the injunction, are you speaking about the harassment restraining order?
Correct.
So you don't have direct communication with your estranged wife, is that correct?
Correct.
And for you to have access at all to your child, you have to go through her father? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware of any order by this court or any other that states you cannot have access to your child?
No.
Are you aware of any order that states you are only to have supervised placement of your child?
No.
When did you first learn that your estranged wife or her father said that you have to have supervised placement of your child?
When the altercation happened between my father and her father.
When you say altercation, what was the date of this altercation? Roughly, do you recall the date?
Say about a month ago.
Okay, so it's sometime in July, is that correct?
Correct.
Was it before or after you'd served the divorce proceedings?
After.
So after you'd filed the divorce proceedings, there was an incident between your estranged wife's father and your father, is that correct?
Correct.
Where was this incident?
At my home.
So so your father was at your home and your father-in-law was at your home. Was your minor child there?
Yes.
So did your minor child witness this altercation?
Very briefly.
Can you describe for the court why there was an altercation for you to have physical placement of your child?
Can you repeat that question?
Can you explain for the court's knowledge why there was an altercation at your house for you to exercise physical placement of your child?
The Jacobsons claimed that I had to have supervised visitation of my daughter, and there was no written order of that whatsoever. And there was an altercation between my dad and her dad over that. He ended up leaving and he came back thinking that my father took my daughter somewhere for some odd reason. And he came back and the altercation happened.
So to be perfectly clear, there was no altercation between you and the mother, is that correct?
Correct.
The altercations are between third parties, is that correct?
Correct.
Has the altercation that happened on that date been the basis of why you've been denied seeing your daughter since?
Correct.
You haven't seen your daughter in a month.
Correct.
Are you asking this court to issue a temporary order?
Please.
What are you asking the court to issue a temporary temporary order on today? What are you asking the court to give you relief on?
I'd like to see my daughter on a 2-2-3 rotating schedule with drop off and pickup being at childcare where my son currently goes to. And yeah,
Okay, are you asking the court to grant you temporary joint legal custody of your child?
yes,
So when you say 2-2-3 schedule, can you explain to the court specifically why you're requesting that schedule?
it mirrors my son and his mother's current schedule, current custody order, and it would work out perfectly that way.
Okay, so if I use Monday as the starting point for this week, do you understand how to explain your 2-2-3 proposed schedule to the court?
Yep. With Monday, Tuesday being, let's say, my days, drop off would happen at Ritz and Branch's childcare on Wednesday. Melanie would take possession of our daughter on Wednesday, Thursday, and then I would get her Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then the following week it would alternate.
And so Monday, Tuesday would be hers in the following week, is that correct?
Correct.
Wednesday, Thursday would be yours, is that correct?
Correct.
And then she would have the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is that correct?
Correct.
Your proposed schedule mirrors your schedule with your other minor child, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And does your marital minor child know her sibling?
Very well.
Okay, so they've spent a lot of time together.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you're requesting of the court today?
No, sir.
Are you asking the court to deny the ex parte requests of your estranged wife?
Yes.
Are you asking the court to award you cost expenses and reasonable attorney's fees for having to respond to that?
Yes.
Okay. Again, is there anything else you're asking of the court today?
No.
I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Questions, Ms. Murtaugh?
Mr. Taylor, how many times since the incident, we're calling it the incident between the grandfathers, how many times have you inquired about having placement of Colette?
Your Honor, I'm going to object only to relevance. There is a harassment restraining order about communications, and I think my client has covered what took place after the incident, so I don't know who he would communicate with.
Well, he did say that he hasn't had placement, and I guess I'm wondering if he's even asked for it. And there is not an injunction between him and Mr. Jacobson, who he was communicating with.
Overruled. Please answer.
I reached out twice and I was ignored both times.
And who did you speak with?
I texted Tim Jacobson.
And you're saying there was no response?
Correct.
So you testified that after the injunction hearing between you and Miss Taylor, that that you were only having placement that was supervised by Mr. Jacobson, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and you said that happened about 6 times?
Correct.
And were you ever denied placement?
It was only when it was convenient for them.
So were you ever denied placement?
Yeah, the past 2 times I've asked, yes.
Prior to that?
No.
I don't have any other questions.
All right, any redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor, Mr. Taylor, let's just get this story straight, okay? You have a harassment restraining order issued where you can't communicate with your estranged wife in early July. Is that correct?
Correct.
And at that time, she is not living at the home. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is she allowing you to see your child at that time?
No.
Who is running interference for your estranged wife not allowing you to see your child?
The father?
Is that who you're communicating with?
It was at the time, yeah. He hasn't had any kind of communication with me since.
Again, Mr. Taylor, I need you to explain this so the court understands it. You understand it and your estranged wife understands it, but you've got to explain to the court how you communicated, what you were requesting, and what you were being told. Do you understand that?
Yep.
So you would contact your father-in-law via text, is that correct?
Correct.
So you're trying to obtain physical placement of your daughter via text to the father-in-law, is that correct?
Correct.
How many total times since the harassment restraining order did you attempt to communicate with your father-in-law to see your child? How many in total?
At least 20.
How many times did you call him?
Multiple times, probably 5, 6 times.
How
And
many times?
there was no response.
How many times did you see him before the incident that you described in July?
Twice a week.
Am I correct that the altercation between your father-in-law and your father was in July, or was it in August?
I believe it was in August.
Okay, I apologize. So you continued to try to arrange to see your child with your father-in-law after your father-in-law and father got into an incident on your property in August. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you recall being served any paperwork concerning an ex parte order?
No.
Do you have any knowledge of any supervision for you to be with and visit your daughter?
No.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any additional questions, Ms. Murtaugh?
Yes. So, Mr. Taylor, your testimony is that you were only having supervised visits after the injunction on July 9th, correct?
Correct.
And you don't think that that should have been happening, that there should have been supervised visits?
No, there should not have been.
But that was your understanding also from the injunction hearing, wasn't it?
No.
You never sent a text to Mr. Jacobson indicating that you needed to work with him because the placement was to be supervised?
No.
So if you thought that you were having to have supervised placement that was not court ordered, why didn't you take some action between July 9th and whenever you requested this hearing? Why didn't you take action before that?
I did. I texted him multiple times, called, no responses.
Did you seek court intervention?
I contacted my attorney and I waited to do it properly.
Okay, but you didn't request a hearing until after the ex parte order was denied, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. She's stating facts that are absolutely contrary to the record.
Well, if it's not right, then that's what he needs to testify to. That's why I'm asking him.
Your Honor, the court can take judicial notice of this case file of 24 FA 53. The court can take judicial notice of when the case was filed, when it was served, and the first request by this counsel prior to this incident for a temporary order hearing. If we're going to get into a factual conversation about somebody who's already appeared as a witness to her affidavit, I'm happy to supply the court with the communications from the respondent's attorney who said she wasn't available, only to turn around and file a bunch of ex parte materials when they were endeavoring to deny my client access to his child.
All right, I'm gonna say, I don't know any of that happened, of if there is no availability or if there wasn't availability or what, but I will take judicial notice. I'm gonna tell you, I'm usually pretty good with dates. I'm usually pretty good with facts. Maybe not so good with names, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm really good with all of the other stuff, and I remember facts all the way back to 2017. Again, because I'm telling you, I remember the 2018 case that I didn't even have a hearing on, Mr. Bach. But I'm gonna tell you that I can take notice of dates and times and when each and every one of these cases involved with each of these parties transpired and when they all took place. So I do, and I am aware.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I'd ask. There's no order that exists, Your Honor, under that judicial notice concerning any supervised visitation. That's not what took place at the stipulated harassment restraining order hearing.
And my question had nothing to do with that,
Well,
Judge.
and I know it didn't, Ms. Murtaugh. Whether or not Mr. Taylor was under some impression that there was any requirement of supervised visitation, that was his impression. Not an order of a court, not even a direction of a court, of this court or any court. All right, next question.
So I think that we still haven't heard from Mr. Taylor why he didn't seek court intervention between July 9th and the end of August, if he was being denied placement as he alleges.
And Your Honor,
Does it even matter, Ms. Murtaugh? Where are you going with that? Does it even matter?
I guess I think it matters. I'm not, if the court doesn't, I will withdraw the question. That's fine.
Some people wait. I've had a gentleman wait 13 years.
Some people do. You're right. So I don't have any other questions, Judge.
All right, Mr. Bach.
Your Honor, I don't think that's accurate from what the court just took judicial notice of, so I don't have any further redirects, Your Honor. I can see the timing of these communications to schedule the original temporary order hearing.
All right. Okay. Mr. Bach, any other witnesses?
No, I have no other witnesses, Your Honor.
Ms. Murtaugh, witnesses?
I'll call Melanie Taylor.
Ms. Taylor? I am actually going to have you come stand up, raise your right hand, be sworn in, and then you will have a seat up here at the witness stand for ease of court reporter.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to provide in this matter should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
All right, you can come and have a seat. All right, Ms. Murtaugh, you may begin.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Taylor, when were you and Alec Taylor married?
The day we got married was January 22nd, 2020, or 28th, 2022.
And you have one daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is her birth date?
6/23.
And what is her name? And during your marriage with Mr. Taylor and before you two separated, did you have concerns about Mr. Taylor's treatment of Colette?
Yes.
What were your concerns specifically?
He had zero patience for her. He repeatedly would wake up angry because she was awake, and he'd be mad at me that I didn't have her to sleep. He refused to do anything and watch her, even for me to shower. I took her to my mother's home.
I'm sorry. I just have to ask you to slow down just because we do have a court reporter who is trying to take a good record of everything. So I understand that courts cause a little anxiety.
Yes.
So just speak slower, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would take her to visit with my mother anytime that I needed a shower. I left him alone with her once to take a shower, and she screamed the whole time. And when I came out, she was nowhere to be found, and he was watching TV and scrolling through his phone. I looked around for her and I found her in a kitchen cabinet. He refused to put kitchen locks on our cabinets. We had them since before she was born. They never were put on because he didn't like them. Many a times he would scream at me because she was upset. He would leave all of the time. And the longest time we probably spent together as a family is when we sat at dinner for maybe a half an hour, but he would get up from the dinner table and have to go out to the garage and work or find any reason not to be around us. He would rapidly drive down the road when I was pregnant because he was angry about something and said he didn't care if we lived. He repeatedly told me that nothing is important enough to him to take his mental health medications because they don't make him feel good. He has told me, I can't even count how many times, that he doesn't believe she's his because I have allegedly been sleeping with other men, and he doesn't think that Colette is even his. Many a times he said if I ever left him after he would scream at me for hours, that he would take her from me and ruin my life.
Has there ever been a physical altercation between you and Mr. Taylor?
Yes, he has pushed me.
On how many occasions?
Probably 5 times in the last year.
And during those incidents, was Colette present?
Every single time.
Was there, in these incidents, was there a time that you were holding Colette when he pushed you?
Yes.
Has he ever thrown anything at you?
Yes.
Can you, how many times, if you can remember?
A handful of times, maybe more.
Okay. And has he ever thrown anything at you while you've been holding Colette?
Yes.
Has anything ever hit you?
Yes.
And how many times has he hit you when he's thrown something at you?
He's almost every time it's hit me, except for there was one time it didn't. It hit the wall behind me and left a hole in the wall.
And was that the incident where he threw a picture frame at you?
Yes.
And when that happened, when he missed, then what happened?
He turned around and punched a hole in the wall and made a lewd comment.
What was the comment?
He said, "How could I miss such a large fucking target?"
And I think you testified to this, but has he told you that if you leave him, that he will take Colette and you would never see her again?
Yes.
Do you believe that that's something that Mr. Taylor would do?
Yes.
Do you think that that's something that he has the financial wherewithal to do?
Absolutely.
Has he ever said to you during your marriage, you'll live on the street and no one will ever believe you?
Yes.
Do you know Mr. Taylor's son, Wesley?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor has 50-50 placement of him, correct?
Yes.
Have you witnessed Mr. Taylor treat Wesley in a way that's concerned you?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
So much that I would never leave him alone with Mr. Taylor.
What types of things have you witnessed Mr. Taylor do to Wesley that have caused you concern?
Spank him so hard that he bruised for days, scream in his face, made him cry or feel guilty about an accident. He has many a times roughly played with him and blamed it on playing. Gotten way out of hand aggressive, and essentially has made Wesley cry for absolutely no reason on many occasions.
And who was the primary caregiver for Colette?
I was.
And who, since you and Mr. Taylor have been married, who has been the primary caregiver for Wesley?
I have.
Has Mr. Taylor ever attempted to feed Colette?
One time, twice, actually.
Okay. And what happened? Can you just describe how that would go?
Not well. She would get a mess or spill on him, and he would have an absolute meltdown and yell and throw the food away and walk away from her, whether I was in the room or not.
Have you heard him swear at Colette?
Yes,
Have you heard him call her gross?
yes,
Has he said to her, "You're gross"?
yes,
Was that in relation to one of these times he fed her?
yes,
Has Mr. Taylor made comments to you or told you that he has any mental health diagnoses?
yes.
What has he told you are his mental health diagnoses?
Anxiety, ADHD, depression, and bipolar.
And has he told you that he's been prescribed medication for those?
He has been prescribed many medications for them.
During your relationship, has Mr. Taylor taken those medications?
He told me he was, and a couple of days before I left, he told me he hadn't been taking them and that he had been lying and that there was nothing important enough in the world to him to keep taking them because he doesn't like the way they make him feel.
Has Mr. Taylor told you during your relationship that he has used illegal substances?
Yes.
What has he told you that he has used?
He has told me at a party one time when he was younger that he had tried meth and cocaine, and then as an adult recently, the day that I left, that he was smoking marijuana and nothing would stop him.
Do you have concerns that Mr. Taylor is using substances other than marijuana?
Yes.
And what is that based on?
He has severe paranoia. He would wake up in the middle of the night and get a loaded shotgun and walk around outside of our home because he was convinced people were breaking in. He falls asleep at the dinner table because and then he has to go outside and into the garage, and he's out there for 10 to 15 minutes and then goes to bed. He has had a severe weight loss in the last 4 to 6 months, I would say. And he has major anxiety which obviously he was diagnosed with, but it's progressively gotten worse that everything I did or do was against him or was to plot against him and cause harm to him, even though most often I was at home where the front camera would have picked up my car and he would say I wasn't there. He had many occasions where money was missing or he couldn't figure out how to pay bills because he didn't have enough money, but made plenty in salary to cover them, and the money was just gone. He's had to borrow money from quite a few people.
Including your father?
Yes.
How long were you and Mr. Taylor in a relationship before you got married?
Before we got married, I would say a little over a year, probably 14 to 16 months.
And at what point in your relationship or your marriage did he start treating you in these ways that you were describing earlier?
Shortly after, probably March of 22, it started.
So shortly after you were married?
Yes.
And from the time that it started in about March 2022 until the time you left, would you say that those incidents increased in frequency, decreased in frequency, or stayed the same?
I would say since March, they have definitely increased. At first, it was once in a while, and then slowly and progressively got to almost every day.
Has Mr. Taylor sexually assaulted you during your marriage?
Can you define sexually assaulting?
Have you been forced to have sex when you did not wish to?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
Almost every day. He told me I had a prostate infection and that the only way to get better or feel okay was to have sex every day.
Have you and Mr. Taylor been in a physical altercation during which you felt that you needed to defend yourself?
Yes.
And have you defended yourself?
Yes. One time he had his arm trying to get around my neck, almost like from behind, and I knelt down or tipped my head down and I bit his arm to get away.
Does Mr. Taylor have, in your opinion, I realize that you are not an alcohol or substance abuse counselor. Do you believe that Mr. Taylor had or has a problem with alcohol that substantially interferes with his life?
Yes.
Has Mr. Taylor ever, during your relationship, ever tracked you?
Yes.
And by track, I mean, has he kept tabs on where you've been going?
Yes.
And on how many occasions did that happen?
He put a tracking device, 2 tracking devices on separate occasions in my truck. He put, without me knowing, he then put one in my mother's car because we often went places together. And then when I got my new car in September of last year, he put one in that car as well.
Did Mr. Taylor admit to you that he had done these things?
Yes, once I found them, I asked him if he had done it, and he said yes.
There's currently a harassment injunction that you have gotten against Mr. Taylor, correct?
Yes.
Since that injunction went into place, has Mr. Taylor violated?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
3 separate occasions, and one of them, I believe, is considered 2 violations.
And can you describe for the court when those happened and what happened?
Yes, about 2 weeks after, I believe it was around July 18th of this year, after the injunction hearing, when he was told no contact, he gave my father a blanket with 18 letters folded up inside so that when I received the blanket, I opened it up and these letters fell on the floor.
So just to be clear, the blanket was folded and the letters were in between the folds?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I opened it to look at it and move it, they fell on the floor. The second instance is he texted my dad and
I'm gonna need a little bit more information about what these letters are. They could be letters from, grandma.
So did you open the letters?
I did.
Did you read them?
I did.
Did you read all 18?
I did.
And what was the content?
The content, he said he addressed them to me every time. He signed them every time with his name or your husband. He would tell me, I don't want the divorce, just please come home and talk to me. And then the next one would be, I want answers. Why are you cheating on me? The next one is him accusing me of having an affair with a family member who is 47 years old. Some of them were that Wesley misses me and I need to come home and see him. Some of them were he can't do this life alone without me.
And what was the next incident?
The next incident was he texted my father and said, I would like to have a conversation with her. Can you ask her? And my dad had said, I'll talk to her. I don't know what she's going to say. So he then told him, tell her I'll drop the divorce if she drops the restraining order.
And was there another time?
There was a third time. This one is more recently. During the day, he had texted my father and said, I've bagged up some items of hers. They're on my front porch. Come get them today. My father did not feel comfortable going over there because of the incident that had happened on August 11th. He didn't feel comfortable being there. So he never went and got the bags, which I was okay with. I didn't know what was in these bags, but at this point, I'm okay without anything. About 3 to 4 hours later, I went to go visit a neighbor, and these bags were placed on our property behind our trash can with tire tracks leading directly back to his property.
And when did you open these bags of?
I did.
Of things? Okay. And what did you find inside?
I found my cloth shoes were moldy, my clothes stunk. I found more written letters and pictures that were in our home.
And when you say you found more letters, did you open them?
I did.
Did you read them?
I did.
And who were they to?
Me,
Who were they from?
Alec, he signed his name on every single letter that I have.
And what was the contents of those letters?
Essentially the same thing, that he doesn't want this divorce. He wants me to come home. He knows he's mentally ill, and he said if I come home, he'll check himself in. He stated that he loves me, and he will forever love me. He'll never forgive himself for the way he acted.
Has Mr. Taylor, during your marriage, ever threatened to commit suicide?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
Often, anytime we had a fight, he would say, should I just go kill myself so the world doesn't have to deal with me?
Are you concerned for your physical safety, even though you have this harassment injunction?
Yes,
Are you concerned for Colette's safety?
absolutely.
Based on Mr. Taylor's behavior before you left, do you have concerns that he's using illegal substances?
Yes,
Are you requesting that the court order you and Mr. Taylor to take a hair follicle test?
yes,
Are you asking the court that, should the court order Mr. Taylor to have placement, that he abstain from any substance or alcohol use 8 hours before or during any periods of placement?
yes,
And you're asking for supervised placement between Mr. Taylor and Colette?
yes.
And how are you proposing that would happen?
I am proposing that we use the facility in St. Paul that does this all day, every day. I do not feel safe with him, and nobody else that I trust does either. They are afraid of what he is capable of, as he has shown numerous times that he is unstable. He has severe anger and a plot to just hurt me.
If the court does not order supervised placement, are there specific things that you're requesting the court put in place to protect you and Colette?
Yes,
Are you requesting that exchanges happen at the Burnett County Sheriff's Office?
yes,
And that Mr. Taylor not be allowed to leave Burnett County with Colette?
yes,
Are you asking for a specific limitation on the amount of time that he would have Colette unsupervised?
yes.
And what would that be?
1 hour.
And are you asking for the court to order child support?
Yes,
And are you asking for guideline child support?
yes.
I don't have any other questions.
All right, thank you. Questions, Mr. Bach?
Lee, can you please give us your highest level of education? Do you have a high school diploma?
Yes,
Do you have a college degree?
yes.
What is your degree in?
Associates in medical assisting.
So are you qualified as like a CNA, or do you work in a local place assisting people with your associate's degree?
I am not currently using my degree.
Are you currently employed?
Yes,
Okay, where do you work?
Objection, Your Honor, I would ask that if she hasn't already disclosed or Mr. Taylor doesn't know, that she not have to disclose where she's employed.
I'm not sure that that's an objection, Your Honor. I don't care where the physical address is. I want to know about her time so we can get to physical placement, which is what we've talked about, so we can get for exchanges. And also she's testified as her concerns and feelings, so we need to establish exactly what her education is to advance these claims.
He's right, it's not a proper objection. I would still ask that the court not make her disclose that.
Well, I'm gonna limit it. I don't know why we need to go into all of this for a temporary order hearing when we're asking, I guess we've been asking for child support, but this is simply a request. This temporary hearing has been requested by Mr. Bach and Mr. Taylor for a placement of the child. I'm gonna ask the question, are you employed?
Yes,
What days of the week do you work?
whatever days I pick.
Usually what days of the week do you work?
I tend to pick Wednesday and Friday,
What hours of those days do you work?
8 to 4.
Do you usually just work 2 days a week?
Currently, yes.
All right, Mr. Bach, that is what you get to ask.
Am I done, Your Honor?
You're done. Yes.
Okay. Don't have any other questions then, Your Honor. I just want to establish how we can get placement, Your Honor.
That's all you wanted to ask her at
No,
all?
no, Your Honor. I've got a number of questions I'd asked about what she's testified to, but I'd like to stay relevant to physical placement if I could.
Yes, you may go and proceed, but we don't need anything more about her employment.
Thank you, Your Honor. You made a number of allegations concerning your treatment during the marriage. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Did you file the harassment restraining petition yourself?
yes.
Did you file it only for yourself, or did you file it for yourself and your child?
I was told by the circuit court it is for one person, so I could not file it for my child.
So you knew when you filed it, you didn't file anything for your child concerning your concerns. Is that correct?
There was nothing to file.
Okay, you've mentioned or you've alleged that you have experienced domestic issues, altercations, pushing. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes,
Did you move for a domestic violence restraining order instead of a harassment order?
I was unaware that that was an option.
Did you seek any advice from counsel? I'm not asking you on counsel, but did you seek any advice from counsel on obtaining a harassment restraining order?
On obtaining the harassment?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
No, I did not. I did that on my own.
So is it your position that you obtaining the harassment restraining order was sufficient for you to deny Mr. Taylor access to the child?
I don't understand your question.
When you had the harassment restraining order issued by stipulation, was it your position at that hearing on that day that you could deny Mr. Taylor access to the marital child?
It was my understanding that it was to be supervised as I felt unsafe for her.
Where in your petition or in the court's order that was stipulated, did it say he had supervised visitation of his child?
We spoke about it before he left and the judge asked him if he understood. She asked me if I understood and I said, yes, that is the understanding that I had.
So when you say we spoke about it, you spoke with Mr. Taylor after the harassment restraining order hearing?
No, we spoke about it in the courtroom.
And you recall the court saying that Mr. Taylor could only have supervised visitation of his child. Is that your testimony?
I recall that I asked if I had to let her see him. I was told I didn't. I also told her I did not believe that she was safe alone with him and I would allow supervised visits with my father, to which she asked if we understood and we both said yes.
I'm gonna state none of that happened.
Your Honor,
I was the judge.
thank you, Your Honor. And in fact, if I may ask the witness to reflect upon the end of that hearing, do you have that date and time in your mind?
Yes.
Recall the
Or
court,
that's not what happened. That is not exactly what had transpired at the hearing.
That was just my understanding. I wasn't stating that that is exactly what happened. That was just the understanding that I took away from it.
Your Honor, may I ask the question to attack credibility, please?
You may.
Thank you. So do you have that hearing in your mind?
Yes,
Do you recall at the end of that hearing, the court said that she would consider scheduling a temporary order hearing if using your father as the go-between for my client to exercise placement would be a problem? Do you recall that?
that I would schedule a hearing.
No. Do you recall this judge at the end of that hearing suggesting to the parties that she could schedule a hearing to clarify how my client could see his daughter? Do you recall that?
I don't even recall that,
No.
Mr. Bach.
I
None
do
of that
not.
occurred. None of that happened, Mr. Bach. None of that occurred. And if you want to find out what occurred at the hearing, get a transcript. I can tell you exactly what occurred at that hearing. Because Mr. Bach, you were very adamant and very pushy at that hearing where you wanted to make sure that Mr. Taylor was not being restricted from being able to see the child. And at that hearing, the court was very clear that this was not a family court hearing because it was not a family court hearing. I said, I have no divorce hearing in front of me. I have no divorce filed. And I said, I could do that at a temporary hearing if a divorce was filed. At that time, I had no divorce filed. Correct, Mr. Bach? Is that correct, Mr. Bach?
I only disagree with your characterization of pushy, Your Honor. I was an advocate that had stipulated.
But, okay, again, but correct, my assertion of what happened and my recitation of what happened at that hearing, other than you being pushy, Mr. Bach, is that correct?
Yes, basically, that's what I was trying to elicit, Your Honor.
Exactly, that's correct. This court never said I would have a temporary hearing and go over anyone's rights or anyone's anything because I could not, because I had no divorce filed. Therefore, move on, Mr. Bach.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. And may I finish, Your Honor?
That's what I said. That's what move on means, Mr. Bach.
I have no further questions of this witness, Judge Mogen.
All right, thank you. Ms. Murtaugh.
I just have one last question, and if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. Are you requesting that the court order, if Mr. Taylor has placement other than at a supervised facility that provides supervision, that he not have firearms around Colette?
Yes.
No other questions, Judge?
All right, off of that, Mr. Bach, an additional question.
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. Thank you. Ms. Murtaugh, any additional witnesses?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Bach, argument.
Your Honor, my client has been found by this court to be a fit and proper parent and shares joint legal custody. He would request in a temporary order consistent with statutory presumptions that he be granted temporary joint legal custody of this child. Your Honor, my client has been prevented from seeing his child by what is clearly false characterizations of what the parties were told at a stipulated harassment restraining order hearing by this court. And my client has knowingly been withheld from being able to exercise his parental rights. I would ask that you award him temporary placement as he has outlined, which is consistent with his placement order with his other minor child. I would ask, consistent with that temporary child support order be entered once the respondent has filed a preliminary disclosure statement or some type of income statement. She's testified that she has employment. And Your Honor, I would like for you to dismiss the ex parte request with prejudice, as well as grant Mr. Taylor cost and expenses and reasonable attorney's fees in the amount of $1,000 to deal with the August 23rd and August 26th communications to this court in this case. That's
I'm
it.
unclear. I was not having an ex parte hearing today, correct, Ms. Murtaugh? Or was I? Because I was not asked by your office to have a hearing.
We did not schedule.
So that's not on the table, Mr. Bach. Sorry.
In my motion, Your Honor, and your response in denying it was to state to the parties that you would schedule a hearing.
Upon request of Ms. Murtaugh's office, she never requested it. That's usually what happens, Mr. Bach. When a party asks for an emergency ex parte order, the judge denies it. The judge says, hearing upon request. I didn't get a request from the petitioner, Ms. Murtaugh. And I'm going to presume that the opposite party doesn't want the hearing. That'd be silly. Ms. Murtaugh never asked for the hearing. I denied her request. Boom, bam, done. Even before any response from you, Mr. Bach. So we weren't here today for that, but you may proceed with the rest of your argument.
That's my only argument, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. So that's not on the table. So Ms. Murtaugh, your argument, please.
If the court hasn't, I would ask that the court take judicial notice of 24 CV 77, the harassment injunction. I would also ask that the court grant Ms. Taylor's sole legal custody pursuant to 767.41 sub 2 sub B 2B, that conditions exist at this time that would substantially interfere with the exercise of joint legal custody. And I think that that's based on the injunction. And also I would ask that the court make a finding, if the court thinks it's appropriate, that there's been a substantial incident or a pattern of domestic abuse, and that the court order supervised placement with Mr. Taylor at a facility for the protection of Ms. Taylor and Colette. We're asking that the court grant her request that Mr. Taylor not possess any firearms during his placement time, that he not use any controlled substances or alcohol 8 hours before any placement time or during placement time, and that Mr. Taylor anyway, or the parties, if the court feels it's necessary, submit to a hair follicle test. And I would ask that there's a very short turnaround on that.
Finish your argument so then we can at least leave.
That's all I have.
All right, well, I guess my decision's gonna have to wait because we have a fire alarm. So, I guess I wait to hear from me. Mr. Levens, I'll see you in a little bit. I'll see what's going on, okay? Thank you. We are adjourned.